Hi, I'm Dean, 33, and I still remember the exact moment I realized I was done being the family's backup plan. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had just come back from my third job interview that week. Rent was due, the car needed repairs, and my boss had cut my hours again. My phone buzzed with a family group text. Big news! My mom had written, followed by a picture of my brother Brian beaming in front of a freshly painted office space with Convergent AI stenciled on the glass. A caption read, "Our little entrepreneur got his dream startup funded, $80,000 seed money from us. So proud!" I stared at it, rereading the number. $80,000. 80,000. And they said it like they'd chipped in for new curtains. Growing up, Brian and I were the kind of brothers people assumed were twins. Close in age, same build, same shaggy brown hair. But if I was the dependable one, Brian was the charming one. He could crash a car and still talk his way into getting in, attaboy, for being honest. I once brought home straight A's, and Mom asked if I was getting enough sleep, not because she was concerned, but because I seemed a little wound up. We'd always been different. I'd worked part-time through college, paid my way, and kept my nose clean. Brian? He bounced through majors like a tourist in a food court, undeclared to film to economics to some kind of crypto miner, which I'm still not sure was real. After graduation, I moved into a tiny studio and started climbing the ladder, corporate grunt to assistant manager to now, technically unemployed, but networking like hell. Brian? He couch-surfed and consulted. At least that's what Mom called it. For the past 6 months, I'd been behind on everything. I was making late payments with early paychecks. I'd had to sell off my vacation days just to keep the lights on. So when I saw the group chat, $80,000 seed money from us, I nearly dropped my phone. My parents had never given me anything beyond life lessons and a $50 check on Christmas with my name misspelled. I texted back one sentence. "Can I get some help with rent this month?" No response for an hour. Then, "Mom, sweetheart, this isn't the time to be asking for handouts. You're a grown man. Work harder and you'll get through it. We believe in you. Work harder." They believed in Brian with 80 grand. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then set the phone down and stared at the ceiling of my 400-square-foot studio. The ceiling stared back. My fridge was empty except for ketchup packets and a single, shrunken avocado. I'd eaten rice with soy sauce for 2 nights in a row. I didn't want a handout. I wanted to not feel like an afterthought. The next morning, I got a LinkedIn message from Brian. "Hey man, heard you're having a rough go. Once the startup kicks off, maybe I can toss a gig your way. You cool with, like, running the books or something? Low pay at first but startup life, lol. LOL. I typed and deleted 4 replies. One was, "Delete my number." Another was, "Does your office come with a conscience?" I sent none of them. Instead, I walked to the window, stared out at the street full of people hustling just like me, and made a decision. I walked out. Out of my apartment, out of that group chat, out of the role I'd been assigned in this family's 2-man play, responsible son, who quietly folds while the risk-taking visionary gets rounds of applause. I left a note on the counter for my landlord. "I'm breaking lease early. Last month's rent enclosed." I packed everything into 2 duffel bags, left the rest by the dumpster, and booked a one-way ticket with my last freelance check. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't look back. I landed in Denver with $68, no job and no plan, just the clarity that I'd rather rebuild from scratch than be the family's emotional leftovers. The first few nights, I crashed on a friend of a friend's couch. Alex, barista by day, guitar teacher by night, lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 thriving spider plants and no working smoke detector. He welcomed me in like we'd known each other since middle school. "You in town for work?" he asked, handing me a blanket. "Actually," I said, "I just resigned from my position as family disappointment." He laughed. "Welcome to the club. I'm treasurer." Over the next 2 weeks, I hit the pavement, literal and digital. I refreshed job boards like a gambler refreshing a slot machine. I picked up odd gigs, dog-sitting, proofreading college essays, even a stint handing out eco-friendly detergent samples while dressed like a giant raindrop. The irony? I was the happiest I'd felt in months. No group texts. No calls asking me to help Brian install a new soundproof pod in his founder suite. No family dinners where I was praised for being the glue, while Brian got the golden goose. One afternoon, while folding laundry at a 24-hour laundromat/arcade, Denver's weird like that, my phone buzzed. It was my dad. Dad, can you hop on a quick call? Need to talk about Brian. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, another ping. Mom. Hey honey. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Haven't heard from you in a while. Brian's been having a tough time. And there it was. The real reason? The check engine light on the golden child. I gave in. I called. Dad answered in a rush. Dean. Thank God. Listen, your brother's had a little hiccup. The business ran into some snags. Investors pulled out. He's really down on himself. Talking crazy. Your mom and I think it would help if you talked to him. I waited a beat. Why? I asked. You're his brother. No. Why me? Because he looks up to you. He's always respected your opinion. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. Is that what you told yourselves? That he respects me? Dad went quiet. I could practically hear him recalibrating his tone. Look, Dean. We might have handled things unevenly. But you've always been the solid one. We just thought Brian needed more of a push. A boost. You understand? Yeah, I said. I understand I was never the one you bet on. You just expected me to clean up the mess when your golden boy tanked the board. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is working 2 jobs while you hand $80,000 to a guy who's allergic to payroll. What's not fair is me asking for help and being told to work harder while he gets a second chance, and a third, and a press release. You don't get to call me now because the horse you backed ran off a cliff. You're being cruel. I'm being clear. There was a long silence. Then he said the one thing I didn't expect. I think we made a mistake. I paused. Swallowed. That's between you and your conscience, Dad. Not my job to forgive it. Not anymore. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Brian texted. Hey. I messed up. Big time. Can we talk? I stared at the screen. I didn't reply. That night, I walked to the overlook near Alex's place. Watched the city blink under a bruised sky. Felt the weight of 29 years shift off my shoulders, molecule by molecule. Brian had finally crashed. But I wasn't interested in playing Crash Mat anymore. 2 days later, I got an email from Brian. Subject. Please just read this. He'd never emailed me before. That was a me thing, cover letters, budgeting spreadsheets, the occasional Excel tutorial for Mom. Brian was a FaceTime at midnight kind of guy. So the email felt off. It was short. I know I've been selfish. I didn't realize how much until I saw Dad crying in the garage. I screwed up. The startup's gone. I owe $30,000 to the landlord for renovations I charged on his Amex. I can't move back home. They said I should ask you for help. Please. Even if it's just advice. There was no LOL. No yo. No gif of a raccoon in sunglasses. I closed the email. Didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. That night I told Alex everything. We were eating cereal on the floor. He had chairs, but no table. He just nodded. So you're the family vault. The one everyone thinks will always be there, no matter how many times they bounce checks against you. I walked out to stop being that. I said. But now they're asking again. He said. And you're scared that if you answer, you're back in the vault. And if you don't, you're heartless. I didn't answer. Because yeah, that was exactly it. That weekend I got a temp gig at a startup incubator, covering reception for a women in tech panel. Bright-eyed founders everywhere. I spent 8 hours watching strangers pitch their hearts out for $5,000 grants while my brother had torched $80,000 like it was firewood. I was walking home, brain buzzing from second-hand ambition, when I saw him. Brian. Sitting outside the ramen shop by Union Station. Same hoodie from college, hair longer than I remembered. He looked small. He didn't see me at first. I could have walked past. I almost did. But then he looked up. Dean? I froze. Swore under my breath. Too late. He stood. Arms open for a hug. I didn't move. You live here? He asked. I do now. Jesus. I've been crashing 2 blocks away. Small world. No. It wasn't. This was a universe with collision courses. I'm not staying, I said flatly. I know. I wanted to see you. In person. I waited. He rubbed his face like a man with a hangover that was half financial, half existential. I messed up. I know I've said that before, but this time, I mean it. You always mean it when the money's gone. He winced. Fair. Is it? I asked. Because I'm not sure you understand what fair looks like. Fair is Mom and Dad giving us the same shot. Fair is me not living on instant ramen while they called your bad ideas brilliant risks. He looked down. They thought you didn't need it. They were wrong. Brian finally sat back down on the curb. Shoulders sagging. I think I always knew they'd catch me, he said. You were the safety net, man. You always came through. I sat beside him, but not too close. That's over. I figured. We sat there a long time. People passed us like we were scenery. 2 brothers on the edge of something. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the first honest moment in years. I'm not bailing you out, I said. I didn't ask you to. Not with money. Not with calls to Dad. Not with second-hand credibility so you can pitch another idea like none of this happened. He nodded. Okay. If you want to fix this, you start from zero. Like I did. His voice cracked a little. I don't know how. I finally looked at him. Not as my brother, not as the golden child, just as a guy sitting on a curb who'd finally hit the floor. I do, I said. And I stood up. Call me when you've been broke long enough to start building. I walked away. He didn't follow. Brian didn't call. Not that week. Not the next. Not after Mom's. Just checking in. Voicemail where she casually mentioned that he was figuring things out at a co-op. And might have applied to Trader Joe's, bless his heart. No, Brian didn't call. But I saw him. 3 weeks later, I was walking home from a warehouse gig, short-term contract, lousy pay, but honest, and I spotted him across the street. Wearing a neon orange safety vest. Loading boxes into the back of a van labeled Earthly Eats, Organic Grocery Delivery. He looked up. Saw me. And gave a little wave. I didn't wave back. Not to be cruel. I just wanted to see if he'd keep working after I walked by. He did. And that told me more than any apology ever could. Meanwhile, my parents didn't get it. Dad sent me a PDF titled Family Finances Moving Forward, like he was pitching a merger. It detailed potential avenues for reconciliation and restructured roles, including a line where Brian could shadow me for stability modeling. I nearly threw my laptop out a window. Then came Mom's turn. She left me a 4-minute voicemail that started as, I'm worried about your brother, and ended with, you know, Dean, not everything in life is black and white. That part made me laugh. Like this was about colors. Like I hadn't grown up watching one child get Technicolor parades while the other was expected to blend into the wallpaper. They thought I was being dramatic. They didn't understand I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. For the first time in my life, I was allowed to make decisions without the ghost of Brian's screw-ups trailing behind me. I had no one to bail out, no one to manage, no one siphoning validation through my success. And weirdly, I was doing fine. I moved into a slightly bigger place, 1 bedroom, full kitchen, natural light. It had a dented fridge and a bathroom mirror that made you look like you were in a funhouse, but it was mine. I picked up a steady gig editing audio for a podcast network. Nothing glamorous, but stable. Paid the bills. Gave me time to breathe. To think. To stop bracing for someone else's disaster. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I got a knock on my door. I opened it expecting a package. It was Brian. Hair shorter. Cleaner. Wearing a gray hoodie with the Earthly Eats logo and holding 2 paper bags. Delivery, he said. Then added, not a stunt. I swear. You were just on my route. We stood there. Me in socks. Him with a bag of groceries like it was a peace offering. You ordered oat milk and 12 bananas, he said. You okay? I raised an eyebrow. You stalking my potassium levels now? He grinned. Old habits. I took the bags. Then hesitated. You want to come in? Only if there's coffee. There was. Stale, but present. He sat on my couch like it was made of glass. Looked around. This place is good, he said. Feels like you. I didn't answer. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. What is it? I asked. Payback, he said. Well, part of it. I opened it. Inside, a check. $200. And a note that said, for college textbooks 2012. Sorry I said I'd pay you back and never did. I stared at it. Jesus, I muttered. You remember that? Yeah. Turns out guilt sticks longer than Bitcoin. I laughed despite myself. He sipped his coffee and looked at me. I don't want you to fix me, he said. I don't want to borrow, or shadow, or restructure. I just want to start over. I looked at the check. It wasn't much. But it was real. And for the first time in years, I didn't see the golden child. I just saw my brother. The check sat on my fridge for weeks. I never cashed it. Not because I didn't need it. God knows I did. My boots had more duct tape than sole at that point, but because it wasn't about the money. It was proof of life. Proof Brian was still in there somewhere, under the swagger and startup buzzwords and years of being the family's favorite idea guy. A postmarked apology, handwritten in gilt and oat milk ink. Meanwhile, back on the East Coast, the family's spin cycle was in full tilt. Mom texted me a link to a GoFundMe she and Dad had made. Title: Help Brian rebuild after startup setback. The goal? $50,000. The photo? Brian looking windswept and visionary, like he was running for mayor of failure. I choked on my coffee. Within hours, my cousin Casey sent me a screenshot of the campaign with the caption, "Is this real or did your dad finally join satire Twitter?" I didn't reply. But I did check the page. $3,800 raised. Most of it from people with last names I recognized. Friends. Relatives. Old teachers. One comment read, "We believe in second chances." Go Brian! Second? This was Brian's fourth. Mom called the next day. I don't understand why you're being so distant. Because you launched a fundraiser before asking if your other son could afford groceries. Oh, Dean. It's not about comparison. Isn't it? There was silence. The kind that comes when someone realizes you've been keeping score and they've been pretending there was no game. You know, I said, if I'd burned 80 grand, you would have made me pay it back with blood, bone, and a credit score. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is being the reliable one and being punished for it. She sighed. He's not as strong as you. And that's why he got all the rope while I got all the lectures? More silence. I finally said, don't ask me to donate. We weren't going to. I mean emotionally. Click. A week later, Brian showed up again. Same hoodie. Same crooked smile. This time, with a Tupperware full of his roommate's famous lentil curry. You didn't have to bring food, I said. I owed you more than ramen, he replied. We ate on the floor. No furniture delivery this time. Just two brothers, legs crossed, sharing silence and turmeric. He looked better. Not clean-cut or polished, but real. He'd stopped trying to impress anyone. Stopped acting like a founder and started acting like a person. Mid-bite, he said. I shut down the fundraiser. I paused. Why? Didn't feel right. They said it was to help, but it felt like a soft landing I didn't earn. I raised an eyebrow. That's new. He shrugged. Been working early shifts. Delivering groceries, bussing tables at night. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I looked at him. Really looked. You serious about starting over? Yeah. You still think I'm your safety net? He shook his head. No. I think you're my mirror. And I didn't like what I saw in it for a long time. That hit harder than expected. We finished dinner. When he left, he handed me another envelope. This one said, "Not for debt. Just thanks." Inside was a small card. On the front, a photo of two kids in matching Halloween costumes, him as a hot dog, me as a can of mustard. On the back, just this: "Thanks for never dropping me, even when I deserved it." I sat there a long time. Didn't cry. Didn't cash the check. But I pinned the card to my corkboard, right next to my eviction notice from 6 months earlier. Proof of where I'd been. And where I wasn't going back. 6 months later, Brian got a real job. I'm not talking consulting or co-founder of an app with no users. I mean an actual 9-to-5. Operations assistant at a nonprofit food bank. Modest salary. Real hours. A boss. A lunch break. He texted me a photo on his first day. Khakis, name badge, sheepish grin. Didn't spill anything yet. Already a win, I replied. Just don't eat all the donations. It was the first time in years I was proud of him without an asterisk. The money wasn't big. The title wasn't flashy. But it was his. No shortcuts. No bailouts. Just work. As for me, I finally stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. I didn't dread group texts anymore, mostly because I left them all. When Mom called, I picked up. Sometimes. When Dad emailed me a lengthy apology disguised as an article about resilience, I replied with a thumbs-up emoji. We weren't healed. We weren't close. But I had a new rule. I don't manage anyone else's damage. They want peace? They can build their own. One Sunday, I invited Brian over. I just bought a couch off Facebook Marketplace, an ancient green monstrosity that smelled faintly of pepperoni, but it was mine. We sat on it like royalty. You ever think, Brian said, that maybe I needed to fall on my ass just to figure out how to stand? I nodded. Sure. But you didn't just fall. You borrowed a parachute, jumped off a cliff, and asked me to catch you with a pillowcase. He laughed. Yeah. Thanks for not letting me splatter. I didn't answer. I just handed him a bowl of popcorn. We watched a documentary about free solo climbers. Somewhere around the halfway mark, he said. Mom and Dad still talk about you like you're mad. Let 'em, I said. He turned to me. You are okay, though. Right. I thought about it. I thought about late nights in that shoebox apartment. The quiet. The hunger. The resentment. The accidental freedom. And I realized I wasn't just okay. I was clean. Of expectation. Of guilt. Of the invisible weight I'd carried for 30 years. Yeah, I said. I really am. A month later, I got a check in the mail. No note. Just a typed line at the bottom. Installment 3 of 40. Thanks for believing in me even when I sucked. Brian's handwriting. I didn't cash that one either. I didn't need the money. I already got paid, in space, in quiet, in no longer being the net under someone else's trapeze. He kept sending checks. I kept pinning them to the corkboard. And every time I walked by, I remembered. Sometimes you don't have to burn a bridge. Sometimes you just have to stop rebuilding it every time they set it on fire. And walk your own damn way.